Another week, another guest. And today we're being joined by Jim or Flops or both. I don't know. What do you prefer and who are you?
You can call me either. Uh, I'm Jim Donahoe. I go by flip flops. Flops depends on who you speak with in the SQL community. I am a cloud solutions architect and engineering for Microsoft. Previously a PFE, but they've changed our roles like 10 times ever since my course of being here. So that is what my role is now. At least that's what my email signature says my role is right now.
I see. Did they actually change the role or just the title? Because, that's kind of like BI, business intelligence, data warehousing, data laking. Some of us, and by some of us, I've been doing the same thing for the last 20 years. They just keep giving it new names so it sounds super fancy and we can increase our rates. Is that kind of what's happening there as well?
Kind of. So first,
I see.
they changed us to customer engineers, and to a lot of us, it's like, you make it sound like we're working in tech support, which not a bad thing, but it's like, well, what do we call our tech support people? Oh, well, they're customer engineers too. I'm like, doesn't that create confusion? So, well, then they're merging our roles with the actual cloud solution architects. So you have my side, which is CSAE, which is the engineering. And then you actually have the cloud solution architects who are just CSAs. So long story short, they're same job, but they're kind of combining the two roles into one.
Fair.
Perfect sense.
Okay, that's a bit of a stretch.
You now know as much as I do.
So good then.
And again, fair.
Is there an explanation on the flops name from the SQL community, or is that like a myth?
Oh gosh, I forgot. We have not. Neither one of us have met each other in person. So I wear flip flops year round. I don't care if there's 35 inches of snow outside or if it's 90 degrees outside. I wear my flip flops. That's what I'm comfortable in. I had some surgeries on my feet, which causes my feet to swell when they're warm. So anytime I wear socks, they get hot and they sweat and they warm and then they swell up in my shoes and that hurts. So I wear my flip flops. The one year I was at a SQL Saturday in Nashville and it was like 20 degrees outside and I come walking in. This is Gareth Swan was still around back then. And I had a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops, and he's cracking up. He's like, I thought you were going to do it, but I didn't really think you were going to do it. It's like,
I see it in person.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Another fun fact, since you first of all, we were talking about that on a previous episode, but let me give you some. I was mentioning that we've been DMing on Twitter in like forever, but we've actually never met because stupid pandemic and stuff.
Right.
At some point we will fix it. We are not sure if you may have been at the same event as Jess before. Given that we figured out you basically lived down the road from her.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, he used to be out of Akron, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I've definitely been to at least 2 SQL Saturday Pittsburghs.
Right.
And I've been to the Cleveland events and the Columbus events. So I imagine we have at least crossed paths, if not met at one of those at some point.
I'm sure we have, because I sat on the committee for Pittsburgh SQL Saturday to choose sessions. So I know.
Okay.
You may not have ran into me at Pittsburgh because I was probably running around with my head cut off, trying to get everything organized.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I know our paths have crossed, but if we have not met in person, I apologize.
Oh, we'll meet one day for sure.
It's usually at those events, everybody's just so like, I got to get from here to this session, or I'm delivering this session. Don't bother me when I'm in the speaker room. Don't talk to me. I'm busy doing stuff. And usually with me, when I'm in the speaker room getting ready, I have like video game music playing in my ears while I'm double checking my slides and demos. So,
see, you will just organize another Data Saturday Pittsburgh And Jess and I will come to deliver our new lightning talk, getting started with DBA tools and Kubernetes in 10 minutes at once. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right?
We could also get and talk on doing a podcast because we're doing it.
You know what? If we are in discussions about trying to do another event, and I will definitely keep you two in mind. Maybe just write it down here. First,
because having it on YouTube is not enough.
Our first two speakers are now guaranteed. Got my first two speakers signed up.
Yeah, that's basically what I said, right? I mean, it's a binding contract, kind of.
It is now. Yes, you're signed.
There's also an excellent sandwich shop in Pittsburgh that I've most definitely driven from Akron to Pittsburgh just to get sandwiches at. So we can definitely do that too while we're there.
The Permanis?
Yep. Exactly.
Yes. So Permanis sandwiches are the Pittsburgh famous staple food.
Yep. And they've got fries on and there's coleslaw on them and they're like literally the size of my head.
Yeah. So the first time Monica Rathbun and John Morehouse came to Pittsburgh, and we're really good friends, I told them, I said, I got to take you guys to Permanis. And they're like, well, what is it? I'm like, it's a sandwich shop. And they're like, I'm like, you're going to go to Permanis. Like, you have to. You come to Pittsburgh your first time, you're going to Permanis. And I took them, and they ended up like splitting a sandwich because they're like, we can't eat. They made the mistake of getting one of the large pretzels, and they had that for an appetizer. I'm like, you're not going to eat your sandwich. And they're like, it's just a sandwich. Like, it's not just a sandwich.
Yeah, you don't need an appetizer for those sandwiches for sure.
Nah. So yes, I will take both of you to Permanis when you come.
Yes.
I really like where this episode is going because I'm not being guilt shamed into doing a triathlon or going skiing for 90 kilometers or whatever. But we're talking about a sandwich shop. Nice.
We have tons of.
I definitely like the theme of this episode. Nice.
We have tons of microbreweries now. Like, that's one of the newer things that's popping up all over the place around Pittsburgh. Is a lot of the microbreweries, and we like to turn our old churches into breweries, which is kind of cool. Like, you go to an old church and it's a restaurant and a bar.
And it kind of makes sense. I mean, the first breweries here were monasteries, so
I get that. But it's really neat seeing all the breweries pop up and all the different tastes, right? So I like a good porter. So whenever we go to a new place, I'm like, I want to try their porter, and it's usually good enough that I'll have 3 or 5, depending.
And then you need one of them sandwiches to mop it up.
Pretty much, right? It's like, give me the Permani sandwich, fried egg on top. I got to soak all this up.
Yep.
Nice.
Anyway, we've gone down a massive rabbit hole again. I know this is a surprise to no one.
Ben was worried about what we were going to talk about for 15 minutes. He was so worried.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that. Anyways, so James, tell us.
Oh my!
I wasn't using your middle name, so you're good.
Thank you.
That's what I do. What's your favorite data thing? And I mean, with all these different roles/titles, and also you having been in the data field for a bit, you've had your hand on quite a bunch of technology. So it can be something super recent, but it could also be something like, well, that was cool, like performance point server. Nobody ever says performance point server.
I actually really like Azure SQL Database. It's bad. I am a Microsoft employee, but even before coming to Microsoft, I was a really big user of Azure SQL DB when it first launched at my old company, and I've loved it ever since. I love the options I get. I can just spin up one database rather than having to drop a whole server and do all that. I just make my database and go from there. Right? It's one of my favorite things to do. One of my favorite things to help clients out with. It's amazing what we're doing now with that platform compared to what it was 10 years ago, So that's my favorite data thing. Not even have to think about that one.
It's crazy to think that.
Told you before.
What's that?
It's crazy to think that it's even been around 10 years, right? Like, it still feels like the cloud is pretty new, but
right?
Really. It's yeah.
Cool. I've been using it since about, I want to say 2012, 2013 is when I was working with a healthcare company, and we were kind of the beta group for Northeast for Azure DB. So it was a lot of fun working with it back then, but it really wasn't at the same time because it's like, this is broken. No, it's working as designed. Oh, well, it worked the other way last week. Yeah, we fixed that. I'm like, well, now you broke it.
It's a feature.
It's that's exactly what they would say. It's a feature. I'm like, it's not really. It's more of a hindrance. So, but in the close second would probably be SQL on Linux, because one of my bigger clients right now, they do a lot of Linux work. They are huge with the adoption of SQL on Linux from Microsoft. So I've been really digging that. So
cool. Awesome.
Hence I have to work with my Kubernetes, because that's becoming up a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. So that's your favorite data thing. But if you're not forced to be doing something data, what is your favorite non-data thing to be doing or to be?
I love my video games.
Okay.
So I collect. I've been called worse.
And that was a requirement for the podcast.
Right? Pretty much.
Yeah. If I wasn't a nerd, I would have been invited here.
No.
See. So retro video games are my thing. I do like current titles too, but my wife and I both love our classics, right?
Okay.
So before my wife and I met, when I was in the military, I used to collect NES video games because I used to be stationed in Japan. And, when we had short leave, I would go to the mainland and I would go to all the electronic stores I could find. I would get every game I could find cheap, and I would box them up and I would ship them home. So for a while, I had the entire NES collection minus one game. I didn't have stadium events because I wasn't paying the astronomical fee for stadium events, but we had that. We had the entire collection in our house. I used to have pictures up it on Twitter. If you wanted to see them on Twitter, I'm sure they're up there somewhere. That's what most folks know me from, is like all my video game stuff from back in the day. I still have them all. Well, most of them, but finance stuff, instead of selling stocks, I sell video games. Sell 10 video games, put a new roof on the house, and it pays for itself. So,
wow, that's cool. So, do you have a favorite out of those games?
So on the actual original Nintendo, my favorite game of all time is Jackal. I just love driving the Jeeps and blowing stuff up. But like a series wise, I love The Legend of Zelda. Like, you can on my T-shirt, right? My wife and I both love the Zelda series, except the Switch. I don't like Breath of the Wild. I'm not a fan of my sword breaking when I'm fighting something. And I don't like when I cut the grass and I don't get hearts or rupees out of it. Like, this doesn't seem right. Like, I'm doing all this work and they're not paying me. And then I got to cook food. I'm like, this is not Zelda. Like, this ain't fair. So we're not a huge fan of the new one. We played it, but we're not a huge fan of it.
Okay.
It's funny you should mention that with the selling video games. This morning on the radio there was a show, and there was the host was basically complaining how, well, a bunch of years back, basically his mother disposed all his Pokemon cards, and some of the cards that he had are now apparently worth 15 grand each. So
wow.
Speaking of, here's in your roof, well, here's in your house, or not, because it's it went to waste years ago.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I can totally, like, I remember I used to collect Magic the Gathering cards, way back in high school days. And I remember some of the cards that I had back then, and who knows, like, I'm sure they were still at my parents' house when I left, but they probably threw them away. But I know that at least the one, like the Leviathan or whatever it was like a $5 grand card. And I was like, I think I had 2 of those. But it's one of those things where I used to have I have a lot of Star Wars stuff. You guys can't. I should turn the camera and show you, but we're not going to do that. I collect a lot of Star Wars figures. one of my top figures I have is actually locked away in a lockbox, and only my wife has the key because she knows I'd go play with it. Is I have the original Boba Fett minifigure from Kenner locked away, still in the package that's been graded. I told her, I was like, well, we can use this to pay for like a 10-year anniversary trip, like to Hawaii. And she's like, how much is it worth? And I showed her. She's like, give me the key. I'm not allowed to touch it. So, and then, like I said, it's crazy how much of that stuff is worth so much compared to like, when you were playing it with it back in the day. It's like, it's just a toy. And nowadays, everybody's like, I'll give you $25,000 for that video game. It's like, this game sucks. Like, there's one game. It's like, what was it? Panic at the Restaurant or something. I was like, this game's horrible. But somebody wanted to pay like $500 for it. I was like, okay, it's a horrible game, but yeah, you're gonna give me $500 for it. Sure,
have fun.
Yeah. It's like, you're not going to enjoy this.
This is even, well, it's almost as hard for me to grasp as crypto. I don't get it. Why is that stuff worth so much money? But
I don't know.
Well, apparently it is to some.
Yeah.
And some people go absolutely crazy about it. Like,
yeah,
they're just, I'm all crypto. I'm like, okay, I'm not. Like, you see these, I have greenbacks. Like, I have real money in my hand.
And nobody does real money anymore. Nobody does that.
I'm not allowed to hold real money. I spend it. So I usually just have credit cards. And
that's what you should do with real money, because I mean, what is that money good for if you don't spend it in the end? Honestly, that's my take. But
I'm going to play this episode for my wife, so she hears you say that, not just me.
that is fine. As long as she subscribes to the channel, we're good.
Ben says this is okay.
Write it down. Unfortunately, we are at time. I'm almost feeling like I have to push this button just so we're all aware of what's happening. This has been super fun, and I could go on and on for the next couple of hours, honestly, but that's kind of against the purpose of our podcast concept, and we are all professionals here. But
we can't go way long on the 4th episode, you know.
There's that. And we also, well, we haven't really figured out if we can have people back after a certain amount of time, so we should talk about that. But when we do that offline. But before we all leave, Mr. Flops, how can people reach you if they want to get in touch? Either because they want to talk about Azure SQL or because they're in dire need of a video game that they're willing to pay a new roof for.
So I still use Twitter a good bit, and my Twitter handle is SQL Flip Flops DBA. I'm on LinkedIn. Those are the two social platforms I mainly use. I'm on Facebook, but it's my wife's Facebook account, so I don't like Facebook. I have it because I have a Quest 2 that I use to play video games with. But those are the two social accounts I have.
All right, cool. And we're going to put that, and you see that in the video again. So get in touch with Jim if you want to. Thank you so much for joining us. This was real fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we see you next time.
See you later, folks.